Okay.
Welcome to If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo. Don, how you doing?
I'm doing just great, Josh. Yourself?
I'm doing well. We got a little quick little special episode here. We have an interview with Derek Schuman, Bill's former tight end. Going to talk about the evolution of the tight end position. Obviously, that's very relevant right now with Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox and everything going on with the team. Thought that we would add to our series of position group recaps and just do a real quick one of the best Bills tight ends in history. That list is not all that great.
Well, you made a good point, and not to get ahead of ourselves here, but we also have a really good interview coming up with the former Bills tight end coach, Charlie Coiner, and you made a very astute observation to him about what it's like in the meeting rooms, just having 3 or maybe 4 at the most. He said it's intimate in the way that, when you coach, it's real hands-on. It's good to have a veteran in the room, but it struck me as to, how few there are,
in Bill's history,
as compared to receivers where you got 6 or DBs there's 7 or 8 So anyway,
I do this one a little bit differently. Obviously, you were there. We had some feedback on YouTube, and we start basically in 1988. That's the start of kind of the Super Bowl era. It's also your first year interning there. Yeah. The guys before then, admittedly, we don't have a lot of experience or knowledge of. So our lists, we say Bill's history, but Bill's history for us starts in 1988.
Well, that's a good setup, too, because I think on YouTube, we got some really good comments on the running backs and receivers. Why didn't you talk about
Cookie Gilchrist?
Somebody, we kind of came at it from a perspective to the extent that we – having been there, that we know them some.
Our Bills history starts in 1988, except for your good friend OJ.
We made an exception, but he was there as an announcer in 1990
and you were such good friends with him.
Oh yeah, right.
So that too. So I found this just random list on Twitter where fans ranked the top tight ends in Bills history, and it gets pretty bleak pretty quickly. So number 43 on the list was Bobby Collins, who was there 99, 2000. Alabama guy. Only thing I remember, Bobby Collins was one of the most athletic players I've ever seen.
Okay.
Like him without a shirt on was a sight to see. He also had the thickest Southern accent of any player that I had ever come across. Okay. It was like he was speaking a different language. It was so thick, from rural Alabama.
Yeah.
Nice guy, but I could not understand him.
I don't remember him well, but I do. That was a year that
he drove Max Bowman crazy because he had all the talent in the world, but he just couldn't put it all together.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna keep going. Number 41 on the fan voted list was Sean Nelson.
I remember kind of the same thing. A lot of potential. Was he like a 3rd round pick? We were real excited because he had a touchdown in New England early on, and we're like, okay, maybe he's a guy that New England won't be able to solve, but naturally they figured out a way. And I think his career was very, very short-lived. That's about as much as I remember.
Okay, so we're going to keep going on the list here. I'm looking at this specific list for the first time, so you're going to have to forgive me if we miss one or two. But we're going to obviously get the big guys. Number 32, Curry Lee. That ring a bell to you?
Josh, you had me stumped.
Curry Lee, okay.
How do you spell it?
Kharilee.
What years?
I don't know.
That maybe the first time on this program that's ever happened.
Between the wheel of failed Bills coaches and this, you have never been stumped. Kyrie, that's your homework assignment. Kyrie Lee, I want a full.
Let's talk about it after the show.
Amazing. Number 30 on the list, Ryan Neufeld.
Yeah, we had Ryan on the program. He was there in 2007-ish when, after Damar Hamlin, the situation happened. We had Ryan and George Wilson on, 2 teammates of Kevin Everett, and they both talked about just the devastation of being on the field and seeing it. Ryan was very much, it sounds like, unlike Dalton Kincaid, very much a block-heavy tight end. We talked in running backs about the prototypical look with a fullback being Jamie Mueller.
Yes.
Ryan Neufeld is that guy as a tight end. I mean, he kind of looks like an axe murderer, but he's a super, super nice, gentle guy.
Yeah, he was a good guest on our show.
He was a really good guest, yeah. And
funny, you didn't mention the axe murderer lookalike when he was on the show.
No, but I think he would have laughed. But no, he in a movie, he just that look to him like he could rip your head off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Number 26 on the list, Dave Moore.
Dave Moore, I actually just reached out to him knowing that we were going to do this tight end program. He came as a pretty highly regarded free agent from the Bucks. We were surprised that they let him go. Maybe it was a salary cap thing. Had a couple solid years. Real funny guy. Real personable to the point where now retrospectively it makes sense that he is a Bucks radio personality. He does Bucks, I haven't heard him, but I'm sure he's real good. And thinking back to how he was in the locker room and around, his personality lent himself to being that kind of great communicator.
Did people in the office ever talk about guys like what they do post career? Were there guys that were obviously going to be a coach, and like Alex Van Pelt was going to be a coach?
Right.
Did a guy like Dave Moore or guys like him strike you as, oh my gosh, this guy's going to go into media?
He did.
Okay.
He actually did. Yeah. I can't say that that's that prevalent with everyone. Some guys are more guarded, which, but Ryan Lindell, who we talked to, ended up being a teacher. He seems like a perfect teacher out in the state of Washington. Dave Moore, it's easy to say because he did become a media personality in Tampa but I can see why it happened.
Number 21 on this fan list, Lonnie Johnson. Frustrating.
Sorry, Lonnie, but man, it's just that one play.
Green Bay. Yeah.
I remember I liked him. He came out of Florida State, kind of like Bobby Collins. You're saying, real man. Look at that guy. He reminded me if he would have put on Keith McKellar's uniform, he would have looked like Keith McKellar. Had some great in preseason flashes here and there, but the play on YouTube the Bills were punting, and
he just got
it was a fake punt. It was a successful fake punt where who was it, Mormon, whoever the punter was, Lonnie released off the line. The ball was thrown perfectly to him. He had nothing but 50 yards ahead of him. And by the way, there was the return guy who happened to be a safety for Green Bay. It's like he forgot he was there and he lit him up. Was that when you were there?
No, nope.
Okay.
No, this was after that. Yeah, no, but it's a very famous play. The YouTube clip is tough to watch. Honestly,
it's coming. It's like a horror movie where don't go in the garage.
No, number 19 on the list, Robert Royal.
Yeah, Robert Royal's name came up a lot in an interview that we did with Charlie Coiner, who was his position coach. He was a big get as a free agent.
Did he get the charter treatment, you think?
I don't recall, but if not, it was like that next level. He was a guy that we wanted to sign the first night.
Did you have to overpay for a guy like him
back then? A little bit. Yeah, you had to overpay. You had to pay a premium for a guy like that. I think he had been in Cleveland, but it was LSU. But it was interesting to hear Charlie Coiner talk about that. He coached him at LSU and just knew what a great leader he would be. And I don't want to give too much away from the interview because it's really interesting, but that would come into play, his leadership, when Charlie would have to get diverted after the Kevin Everett situation. And Robert lent himself as a leader and kind of in his place.
People don't realize maybe sometimes that so much of the NFL is about connections,
right?
Who you know, who you've worked with before, who you trust. So a lot of times guys like a free agent will be brought in because of a position coach or someone who they worked with before, or a scout, or, those personal connections. Even not talent obviously wins in the end, but if it's a tie or it's close between two guys, you're going to go with the guy you know.
That's right, and it works the other way. If you don't do your homework that way, one of the Bills' top draft picks they ever had that was a spectacular bust. The trainers, our Bills trainers,
was it
can figure it out? Yeah.
Oh, was it the offensive lineman that you single-handedly sank his career with Mr. Wilson in the car from Texas? Okay, maybe
so the trainers
allegedly
knew the trainers at Texas. And they knew them. There was a former Bills trainer on the staff, and he was like, guys, if you would have reached out to me, I would have given you some information that you would have made this major decision, maybe not as automatic.
Fourth pick in the draft too, right?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the team did homework in other ways, but the trainers told our trainers, I wish you would have called me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ouch. Well, you got him in the end. You sank his battleship.
So you'll have to go back to other episodes to hear that.
Yeah. So number 13 on the list, Lee Smith.
Yeah, Lee Smith was. He came when I was handling players' pay. Every week he would sit down and go over his paycheck and what's this deduction, what's that deduction, what's that for, and yeah, he was real short with his answers. He was very much like a Ryan Newfoundland, a blocking tight end, but he just he had a little bit of an Aaron Schobel in him, where he would just be real short with his answers, but it was kind of tongue in cheek.
Gotcha.
Good guy.
Number 12, Charles Clay.
Charles Clay, yeah, he was another kind of addition by subtraction, stealing a really good player from the Dolphins.
He had a lot of run coming in, like he was going to be kind of a big deal,
right? Yep, and he had decent numbers. I remember, I think we were in Oakland one year, and that we had a kind of there was a big fight. I was with Paul Lancaster, director of player engagement, and we had gone out to dinner, and Charles Clay's wife was in labor, and they were making arrangements that, are you talking to Charles? Are you being in touch with him? When his wife does have this baby, we will send a private jet. This is Saturday, and have him be there for the birth. And then be for a few hours after that, there'll be a plane ready for him to fly here to Oakland. And it got pretty contentious between some people, because Paul wasn't comfortable having that conversation with him until after the baby was going to be born. But they wanted him to have the conversation to be like, hey, have a good birth, but know that you're going to be coming here right away. We're still, the thing is, hey, we're still in the playoff hunt. We were, one of those, we're like 7-7 or
in
something.
The hunt.
Yeah.
Would he have gotten paid like for a family emergency like that, or a birth? Do you get your game check?
Yeah, that situation rises to the level of not foregoing a check.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of those.
It'd be like a team excused absence.
Yeah, it's up to the head coach.
Okay.
I mean, technically, he could say you weren't there for the game, but in the case of that, or a death in the immediate family, having to go to a funeral, that happened too. Tough timing sometimes, but life happens. And
interesting.
Yeah, I remember that. It was an ugly Saturday night.
Did he come back for the game?
No.
Interesting. Number 10 on the list, Mark Campbell.
Yeah, Mark Campbell, again, a decent free agent signing. I think he came from Cleveland. And I actually just reached out to him to see. I haven't heard back from him, but yeah, he was kind of a jokester in the locker room. And yeah, we'll see if we can. I have a feeling if we can ever get him on, he'd be a guy that could tell a lot of stories.
Speaking of jokesters, number 8, I've told this story before, Butch Roll.
Yeah.
The holder of the most consecutive receptions for touchdowns in NFL history at the time. I don't know if he still is, but what was it, like 9 or 10 or 11 in a row where it was 1-yard touchdown?
Isn't that crazy?
And then the bow. He would always do the touchdown celebration, the bow.
We'll be talking to him.
You've told the story about the snake
Yeah.
in the ticket office. Like, he was always the third tight end. Right? Like, it's just kind of known that was your role, right? And he carved out a role on the team.
Wait, did he ever, right? Yeah. I mean, his numbers are, you're a fantasy guy. You talk about how frustrating that
Oh,
was.
yeah. He'd have been a nightmare. I mean,
Yeah.
just a nightmare. He had season with 6 touchdowns and 6 yards receiving.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Incredible. Yeah.
I'd love to know I'm going to have to find out what his longest reception in the NFL was.
That'd be interesting.
I don't think it's.
All I remember are those 1-yard touchdowns.
Yes,
it always baffled me. Like, how did the other team not
alert Butch Roll?
How do they know? How do they not cover
the play call on defense should have been alert Butch Roll.
Yeah,
that's what it should have been.
Right.
Number 7 on the list. We're finally getting into some guys I think who had solid careers and memorable for the way they played. Scott Chandler.
Yeah, I remember going to training camp the year that we signed him. We signed him and a guy named Mike Cawson. Caussin. He actually think he had some interest. Was he in one of the reality TV shows, Mike Cawson?
Oh, really? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, if somebody looks it up, they'll see. But Scott Chandler, I remember seeing this guy 84 out there, and I remember asking Kevin Meegan, who man, this guy can play. He reminded me of Jay Novacek in his prime. He did everything well. Like the signing of him was not really a big deal, but turned out he was extremely productive. I remember, I think it was in 2014 against Minnesota. He made it was like 4th and 20 with Kyle Orton, final play of the drive, and he made a great catch. Not as great as last year's. It was ironically also against the Vikings.
Oh, Justin
at home. Yeah, it wasn't highlight quite to the Justin Jefferson level, but it was a play. The game's over if he doesn't make that catch. We're like, how did he make that catch? And then Sammy Watkins ended up catching the game-winning touchdown a couple plays later.
He has the famous touchdown celebration for the first game that got moved to Detroit.
Good call.
Shoveling the snow. That was the game you helped move the team there.
Yeah, That was that's right. And he did that was tough. I mean, it happened twice to the Bills last year, and he had a good career,
memorable. And
did he win a ring with the Patriots? I know we went there afterwards.
I don't know.
Somebody could look it up, but he went to the Patriots after us.
Okay,
and they were still
the Patriots.
Yeah, I think he might have gotten a Super Bowl ring with them.
Okay, nice,
maybe.
So number 6 and number 5 are guys before our time: Paul Costa and Ernie Warlick. I can't say I know them. Number 4, Keith McKellar.
Going back to Ernie Warlick, he was in the building a lot. He was very active in the alumni. Paul Costa may have been as well. I didn't know him, but I knew Ernie Warlick a little bit.
Is Ernie Warlick on the Wall of Fame?
He might be, but his hand was just this giant hand. I remember, it just swallowed you up.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So Keith McKellar, number 4. And now for our younger listeners and people who might not know, the K-Gun offense was
actually Jim Kelly, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Thanks for the spoiler there, buddy. I was setting it up. The K-Gun offense was famously the 3-receiver set that the Bills ran in the 90s. And everybody assumed that they called it the K-Gun for Jim Kelly. He was a Houston Gambler. He ran the run and shoot down there. So you would think K-Gun offense. But the K-Gun offense was really because of Keith McKellar.
Right.
And Pete Metzler has told us that on the show in one of our very first episodes that we did. Keith McKellar had such a unique skill set.
Yeah.
And he was if you want to compare him to Dalton Kincaid, I could listen to it where he was just,
let's hope,
he was
right?
a glorified receiver is the wrong way to put it, but he didn't do a lot of inline blocking. He went out wide. He was the matchup nightmare for teams when you ran the 3-receiver set and he's at tight end, because he basically could win a one-on-one against any linebacker in the NFL back in the early 90s.
Yeah, no, very, very athletic. It was masterful the way the Bills managed their tight ends between Metzlar's role and McKellar. Their skill sets were so different. Pete was the blocking guy and Butch was a short yardage guy, and Pete ended up being a very good receiver later on. It was but McKellar, man, in the open field, he was a nightmare matchup. Personally, extremely quiet. Yeah, I was around, but I never felt like I can't recall conversation with him ever.
That's the most talented tight end room the Bills have had, maybe up until this year, right? When you had Pete, you had Keith, and you had Butch Roll at the same time.
Yeah, and it was just they were greater than the sum of their parts, as they say.
Right.
As a unit, they just yeah.
So until this year, that's probably the most talented tight end room that the Bills have ever had. Interesting.
Sounds right.
Number 3 on the list, I can share a funny story. Jay Remersma.
Let's hear your story.
So you remember my old friend Jay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, his fiance at the time, she thought Jay Remersma was the most handsome man, maybe of all time.
A striking looking individual.
He was a good looking dude, Michigan guy. Looked like he was cut out of a stone. And I remember how excited she was when he got invited to the Christmas party, and he took her his date, and she got to meet Jay Remersma. And you would think that she was meeting, like, I don't know, one of the Jonas Brothers today, or I don't even know, Taylor Swift or whatever. I mean, she was in awe of Jay Remersma, and it was just really funny because she was an attractive girl and had a good job and all this, but she totally fangirled out to meet Jay Remersma because all we had heard about for 2 years before that was how handsome Jay Remersma was.
He made a run in politics, which I'm sure his looks lent himself to that. I also remember we had on the program Luke Russert, and he talked about Remersma being one of his favorite players. Not for that reason, for the record, but he just really liked him.
Thanks
as a
for
player.
clarifying that.
But I knew Jay a little bit, but yeah, he had a nice
real
career.
polished.
Yep.
Just like a good prototypical tight end. Like looked like he
He
went
did.
to Michigan. Good looking dude.
Yep.
And oh man, Jay's fiance at the time just was madly in love. Number 2 on the list is Dawson Knox, which obviously we're not there, but interesting that he's already. Now, there's some fan bias there. This is a fan survey, considering there's some recency and he's on the team now. But, boy, you can make an argument that he's already, like, probably in the top 5 in Bill's history.
I was doing some research on tight ends the other day in preparation for our conversation, and I did not realize his numbers were where they are already. Yeah, he's on pace to maybe be, in terms of maybe receptions and yards. Touchdowns, he's already –
yeah.
Is he top 3 or something?
I believe
he's
so.
Really up there. It's impressive. I didn't know Dawson Knox. I was not with the team anymore when he came, but what I really like about him is that your son dressed like him for Halloween.
Well, so not only did Jackson dress like him for Halloween, he took when we went to a meet and greet at Dave and Adam's Card World, he took a picture of himself dressed as Dawson Knox, and he signed it. Yeah. So Jackson signed the card, good luck, in his Halloween costume.
Cool.
Dawson loved it. He took his picture with Jackson. He took a little bit of extra time with him, and I appreciate that. And he's certainly still Jackson's favorite player. And we might actually see him at the Red and Blue scrimmage.
That would be great. So, well, before we get to the last one, I'm going to ask you about Derek Schuman.
Yes, so I didn't include him he was on the list, but obviously, we're going to have an episode with him next. Really good interview. One of those guys who, you'd call him like a journeyman in the NFL, but super like interesting, super smart, stayed around the game. And, having like a 3 or 4 or 5 year NFL career, you realize just how like elite these athletes are. This is a guy who you'd say, oh, well, he's just like some guy in the NFL, but some guy in the NFL is like in the top 0.1% of like, athletes in the country. It's amazing.
27 games, I think. And, I really enjoyed the interview. I can't wait for people to hear it.
Absolutely. And number 1 is obviously Pete Metzler. I think it will take Dawson Knox winning a Super Bowl, maybe 2 more seasons to eclipse Pete's success with the team. I was actually on YouTube not that long ago, and I watched the no punt game when he just killed the 49ers.
Yeah. Right.
And it was just kind of striking. Like, he's so big and he's so lumbering. Like, nothing he did looked fluid, but he was just always open.
He was 6'8".
Yeah.
And, Jim knew that, he had to put it up there. And if he gets a mismatch against, someone who he's got 6 or 8 inches on, pretty good chance he's going to come down with it. He was a really, really good basketball player. I know this personally. Of all the tight ends, I think he's the one I knew the most personally. I actually, there was a basketball clinic up in the Adirondacks that I was a camper in, and then a part of the staff. The Dallas Mavericks GM, Norm Sanju, ran it. He had pro players up there every year from the Mavericks and from some other teams. And I asked Pete, because I knew he played basketball, if he would want to come up there with Barb and his sons, who were real young at the time, for a week. And he said, yeah. And so Norm talked to him. He came up, and he was real good with the kids. But we would play, we staff guys would just, we're fillers. But it was all, it was the first time we had a football player who was active, who did not want to get hurt.
Right.
But Roy Tarpley, who was the starting center for the Mavericks back then, who had just gone against Olajuwon and Kareem and Moses Malone. He got matched up against Pete Metzler's. And I'll tell you what, one thing Pete could do, like, he was legit. Like Tarpley was trying to back him into the paint. He couldn't do it. Yeah, he was holding his own, and
well, if you're a tight end in the NFL, I mean, you can hold your own against.
Yeah. It was something to watch.
Didn't you say Jason Kidd played in a couple of those games?
Yeah, he played. He came up 1 year. He couldn't play because there was a lockout, and then Derek Harper and Mark Aguirre.
Did you ever end up guarding Jason Kidd or trying to guard Jason Kidd?
I played on his team.
Okay, so if there were 10 players in this game, where were you? Were you like 9th, 10th?
Oh yeah, but I was out there and supporting guys. But one thing, Jason Kidd, is you might not realize you're open, but if he thinks you're open, look out, because you're going to get one in the temple,
right in the side of the head.
Just keep looking. And but I remember trying to cover Derek Harper, and we were playing the game to like 15 or 11, and we were winning, not because of me, but our team, the way it was constructed. And he was like, "What's the score?" And it was like, "It's we're up 8-5. And he's like, oh, okay, I want to play some tennis. And he just hit like 6 3-pointers from
and that was it.
like half court. He did boom, 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 boom. Okay, off the court. He went to the tennis courts. Like
it's a whole different realm of it.
It was crazy. But Pete Metzlar's great individual. We're privileged that I'd like to get him on again sometime. But yeah, the basketball part, witnessing that, it was pretty fun to watch.
All right. Hopefully everybody enjoys the interview with Derek Schuman, and we'll see everyone soon.
All right.
Sounds good. All right. 3, 2, 1.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are joined by former Bills tight end Derek Schuman out of Boise State, a 7th-round pick out of 2007 with the Bills, played 27 games. And we've been talking about tight ends with Dalton Kincaid being drafted by the Bills. And Derek did his share of pass catching and blocking. But we want to talk about his career and then get into that a little bit later. And Derek, thanks for joining us. Where are you calling in from?
Yeah, thanks so much. I'm actually just calling in from Boise, Idaho, that area.
Boise, Idaho. Nice early morning for you there. Beautiful part of the country.
Try to take into account mountain time here. I thought. Yeah. Great seeing you.
So Derek, why don't you just walk us through? We'd like to ask, guys who made the NFL and played for the Bills. Can you just walk us through your early years? When did you know football was going to be your thing? When did you decide to go to Boise State? And just kind of talk us through your life and your journey up until like draft day.
Sure, yeah. I'll try to keep it quick, I guess. But for me, it was really early on. I was about 7 or 8 years old when I first discovered the sport of football. I remember moving to Idaho, and at the time, you're little, you're 7, you don't know anything. And I used to play soccer, and I remember my little assigned buddies like, "Hey, we don't do that here. Like, we play football." And I said, "That is." And so all we did was play football recess, and it was a love at first sight story for me for sure. I was doubling down all in from the get-go, started watching football, and knew when I was about 8 years old that I wanted to play in the NFL. I actually was a quarterback, thought I was going to be the next Troy Aikman for the Dallas Cowboys, and it didn't work out that way, but I was pretty committed early on. And that love just literally kept growing forever, basically. And I'm local to Boise here, right? And so I grew up watching the Broncos play, and there was no question, like, I wanted to be a Bronco. And so sometime in high school, they offered, once all those letters and things start coming in, and it was right away, yes, I want to be a Bronco. So it didn't require a lot of thought on my.
So, so Derek, we're talking about, tight ends, and Dalton Kincaid's been all the rage around here. It's interesting to watch people kind of don't understand, maybe how he's coming in and how he's going to be used. But before we get into him, what made you gravitate towards being a tight end? Were you put there? Did you choose to be there? Did your body just kind of lend you there? What happened to get you to, which is a real unique position on the field?
Yeah, sure. So, again, I grew up playing quarterback or running back, all the types of skill positions, I guess. But I was definitely a tight end body playing other positions. And it wasn't until my junior year in high school, I was thinking, all right, quarterback, that's my game. The coach is like, "Hey, we already got a guy who's pretty good. Why don't you try tight end?" And I was like, I'm not even sure what that is, but okay. And it was just like my football story. It was pretty much everything that I naturally needed and loved. It was physical. It was in your face. They threw me the ball a ton, so I was involved in the passing game, the run game, and again, just that little fire in my belly kind of took off with it, and never looked back. I loved it. I mean, I might be biased, definitely the best position in football.
Yeah, you do it all. I mean, you got to try to get off the line. You got to try to be deceptive. Am I going to go out? Yeah, and watch a lot of film, I'm sure. So was Boise State the natural choice for you then, you said, because you lived there? Did you consider any other schools, or that was it?
Yeah, I really opened most of the mail that came in. It was Boise State or bust for me. And, I went to a passing camp here a couple of times. They offered me sometime. It was my junior season, and I remember being like, that's it. And I wasn't interested in anyone else. It was the right fit. They were an explosive offense. They utilized all the positions. It wasn't just a downhill game or a throw the ball long game. They were creative. They were exciting. Everyone got their hands on the ball and was involved. And so me, as I keep looking at the future, like, I get involved in how playing football, it was a no-brainer for me.
And the blue turf probably helped too.
Turf,
Of
yeah, I was
course,
gonna
the famous.
guess,
That's probably what most people around here equate with Boise State. So you have a good career there. At what point did you feel like the NFL might be an option? And then, can you take us to your draft day, 7th round? Is that where you expected? Did you expect to be drafted at all? And then, what was your reaction? When you got the call?
And tell us a little bit about that Oklahoma game that you had that it really stood out.
That's a loaded question, so if I missed something,
Yeah.
But it actually was kind of everything that I wanted. I thought it was great. It had ups and downs. It started off really good as a freshman. I ended up coming out of high school and starting my freshman season. Caught a bunch of passes and a game winner, in essence, in our freshman bowl game, and that kind of just set the stage and set that bar for the rest of my career. And then my sophomore season, I ended up getting a little injury, which slowed me down a bunch. So it was that highs and then the lows, and then again it picked back up my junior and senior year. But you had asked about when I knew that the NFL was in my future. That's kind of a two-part question, because internally I always believed it was. I was always like, this is what you want, and you're going to do any and everything it takes to get there, right? So I was, early to meetings, extra meetings, always in the weight room, doing any and everything I could to set myself up for success there. But it was probably sometime in my junior year when the coaching staff started kind of rallying around and being like, you got a chance, man. Like, just keep doing what you're doing. And that was just good assurance for me from other eyes, because I always believed what I believed, but it's good sometimes to hear from other people, right? But yeah, as far as that goes, had a pretty good junior year. Senior year, again, played well. Statistically, I never had anything outstanding. You would look at my stats and be like, you know what, he's just average. But that was my role in this offense. I did a ton of blocking, and so naturally, I'm not going to have 50 catches in a season and that kind of stuff. But yeah, no regrets on that. I actually really loved it, and I think the physical aspect of football and the tight end position is oftentimes more rewarding than catching some passes. So yeah, my college career actually ended my senior year. We finished that season with a bowl game against Oklahoma.
The famous Fiesta Bowl. That's one of the classic games in college football history.
Sure, yeah. I just feel blessed to be a part of it. I've traveled all over the country and met people that are wearing OU hats or BSU hats, and somehow you strike up conversations. And that wasn't just a local game that people were passionate about. You can go in any number of airports here in the country, and people have seen it and want to talk about it and have their own little unique experience. So I actually really liked talking with people about their perception of the game. But yeah, it was electric, right? It was so fun to be a part of. And thankfully, we finished on top at the end of that game. And really, I remember when that game was over, you're mentally, physically, and emotionally drained, and we're sitting around taking a big breath. And it was like, I remember having this slight moment of, if my career's over, I'm glad it ended the way it did. Because it was like, it's out of my hands at this point. But it was just such a unique experience to be a part of.
What was your reaction when you found out you were calling the Statue of Liberty play?
Yeah, totally good. Yeah, loved it. I think our whole team just rallied around that play. So we knew at that moment, it's like, this is it. This is going to work. And I was kind of on the play side of that block. So for me, it was just like I was having a pretty good game. So the confidence was up despite being pretty tired. But it was just like, you know what? This is going to work. I think we all knew it was going to work.
That's beautiful. What a gutsy call, and that was one of the first times that I'd ever really watched you guys in depth in national. I fell in love with you guys. It was great. I loved everything about it. Your effort and the balls of the coaching staff. You ran a little halfback pass as well, like late in overtime, and I just love the fact that they went to win the game. It was great. And then the running back ended up proposing to his girlfriend on the sideline. Now that he mentions that, I remember so much about that game. That was a fantastic game. So that game's over. And what does your off season look like that year? And then obviously up to draft day.
Sure. I was kind of that guy that never had an off season. So for me, it was, hey, get home, unpack, do the things, but just right back in the weight room, prepping for what's next, right? And I do remember getting a thing in the mail about the combine. So again, once I got the mail in the combine, it's like, okay, each little moment along my career kind of just hit that next little tick, like this is your reality. I was just super pumped to have that opportunity. So I was just in there in the weight room doing what I could just to stay healthy and keep my strength and all those things. But yeah, the combine ended up being super fun. I love that kind of competitive atmosphere. And yeah, draft day for me, my story is probably a little boring compared to some. My agent at the time was like, you got a really good chance. They put the feelers out, and I still don't understand how all that works, but we were thinking maybe like a 5th or 6th round type of opportunity. And for me, I was on the phone a lot with the Falcons. I remember like every day, and they had 3 picks in the 4th round, I believe. And they're like, "Hey, if you're there, we're gonna grab you in the 4th." And I remember thinking, "Yeah, I'll be there. Like I'll be ready." Like I was pretty excited about that. And then sure enough, that came and went. And so you get that early excitement, and then kind of that stress dump in essence. And I remember I was at my brother's house, and he had just got a relatively new home, but there was no yard. So what did I end up doing? We were out pulling rocks and planting grass and picking weeds, just anything to get my mind off. So I was pretty much just outside with the phone on, trying to get my mind off the entire process. But yeah, for me, that was it. And then yeah, when the Bills called in the 7th, I mean, I'm still shaking just thinking about it. What a surreal experience for me, something that I'd like just imprinted on me forever. I'll never forget it.
Yeah, then you come to Buffalo. Had you ever been here to Buffalo before that?
No, I've never been. So again, new experience. Come to find out, I actually have a half brother and sister that live and grew up in Buffalo, and they're diehard Bills fans. So I got to meet them. Like, this is pretty cool, But beautiful area, and I'd actually end up staying year round there. I loved living there. It was fun for me. It was unique and different, and just a really neat community to be a part of.
Yeah. So you're drafted in the draft class with Marshawn Lynch. What did you think of Marshawn? We did a episode the other day on running backs, and I was there, of course, with you and Marshawn. And how would you describe him in your first year and your time with him?
Yeah, he's one of those guys you'll never forget, right? He was just open and honest and in your face. Who he is who he is, And I know all the things, you watch him on TV and you see him in the media, and he was just a character, fun and friendly, but he was respectful and a professional. I mean, I can't think of any negative things to say about him. He was one of the guys that I loved.
Yeah. What was it like blocking for him?
Yeah, I got a few stories about that one, but it's like an honor, right? And I'm kind of maybe an old school traditional guy, but it's like, when he's getting the football that he's not going to stop. So it's never like the ball snaps and it's 1, 2, 3. I watch guys now and it makes me want to barf because they maybe hit 1 or 2 seconds of blocking and they shed the block and look out for your knees and they get out of the way, and it's like, no. Like, in my opinion, that's not how we got to play ball. And because Marshawn's gonna be right on your back, but he's not giving up. And yeah, it was just really fun playing with him. Great team.
So your memory's really good about your college games in the NFL. Is there a hit in particular that you recall, like delivering and or receiving that just was like wake up? I mean, and your adjustment into the NFL, I'm sure you were ready for it, but we always hear about the speed of the game and things like that. But do we have any memories along those lines?
Yeah, maybe only a couple, and not maybe the details aren't super good, but I do remember my first impression coming up to OTAs, and watching everyone run around. I was always confident in my own abilities, but I do remember watching like the offense operate, thinking, well, we're going to win a Super Bowl. We've got talent everywhere. I mean, it was lightning fast, catching passes, throwing 70-yard missiles. I'm like, these guys are good. Like, we got a chance, and then we were 7-9 in average, so it's kind of like, oh. It's just it was a good like a reference point for me, like, hey, everyone's good, right? But yeah, there was a couple hits I remember. We were playing the Browns once, and I ran like a little check flat, so I'm out by the sideline, and I think it was Trent at the time. He checks the ball down to Marshawn, right? So we're talking about blocking for Marshawn, and in my mind, there's no way I'm going to stand up there by the sideline looking in at the QB watching Marshawn get blown up, right? And he doesn't. He bounces out towards the sideline, towards me, and I'm like, oh crap, like I got to do something. So I'm outside in, like coming down, just trying to like sacrifice the body, glorify the soul mentality, and I hit one of the, I think it was like, I can't remember his name, like it might have been like Willie McGinnis, I don't know, some guy was way bigger and stronger than me, and it felt like I ran into a wall. Like I'll never forget. It's like he saw me coming, we saw each other coming. It's like, this is what we're doing. And It might not look anything special, but I mean, I'll never forget that one. It was, ring the bell a little bit, and afterwards you got to take a few deep breaths and kind of walk around slowly and then gather yourself and be like, all right, I think we're okay.
Was that the Monday night game against Cleveland, or the year before when we got stuck there?
No game. It was at home, I think.
That was a Monday nighter, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
It might have been. Yeah. Either way, yeah, that's Willie McGinnis. Yeah, he was a great player.
Interesting.
Too.
So Derek, can you kind of talk us through, like, so when a tight end gets drafted, did you know your role going in was, 70% blocking, 30%, catching? Like, is there that delineation, or is it just a function of the offense? And, like we've brought up, Dalton Kincaid here, and he seems to be more, in the pass catching Travis Kelce type mode. Maybe you could just explain to people, that don't understand the nuances of football, what it's like training and practicing to be a tight end in the NFL when you have that dual role of both, receiving and blocking?
Sure. Great question. I probably could talk about this forever, so I'm going to try to make sense of this. But it's like, as you guys know, the game's not the same even as when I played to now. Like, it's just not, and the expectations are different. So when I came in, they never really talked about what you're doing. You just realize, oh, hey, we're like a two running, fullback, running back, downhill, play action, run team. All right, that means I'm going to do a lot of blocking. Like, copy that, I'll do it. And I liked it. I was okay. So my role, very different tight end role, what you guys see now, right? Where they're split out more. They're just giant receivers that are physical. Or, mine is kind of different. It's a paradigm shift. But how to train that, I honestly think you guys are doing a great job. They're fast, they're aggressive, they're attacking the ball, they're big, strong, physical. I mean, all the things that you think you would need in a game. They just gotta keep that up. I don't know. Does that kind of make sense? I feel like I could go on.
Yeah, no. I mean, our listeners, we're part of the Cover One network here in Buffalo, and we have some sophisticated listeners who, there's film breakdown, et cetera. And then obviously there's, a bunch of people who just like content and trying to understand football on a basic level. So, we were hoping that any insight that you had into kind of the evolution from when you played, and even, before you, the guys who would just downhill block and be attached to the line of scrimmage, to today. Do you think you could have pulled off the role like of today, like splitting out wide and much more of a receiving role than, what you did?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually think that was probably my strength. Unfortunately, I'm 6'3". I'm not 6'6". So looks and feels a little different. But yeah, I actually personally, like on a personal level, when we would have pass routes called or pass plays and I recognized man coverage, my confidence through the roof because I knew I was going to win. Like, I know where you're going. I know your leverage. Once you kind of learn how defenses operate, you don't need to be 6'6". You can still win, yeah, I just think it's a totally different game. And it's actually kind of exciting to watch now because you look like the Travis Kelce types. It's kind of not fair. Like, he's going to win because safeties can only be so big if they want to keep running, and he's going to beat up one of those guys because they're littler. And sometimes those linebackers just a little too slow, or maybe they're not as shifty as a Kelce type. So in my opinion, man, it's such a good position to utilize if it fits your system.
So when you're watching film in preparation for a game, you see where there could be a mismatch, and if it happens, you kind of salivate, like, this is what I was hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not, obviously not every play, but I mean, I just think of like the Patriots at the time when we were playing. Like, you can pump out guys if they're products of the system a little bit. It's like, hey, we know how to create mismatches or at least recognize them, and then you got a quarterback that can deliver and find it. It's lethal. It's hard to stop.
So speaking of the Patriots, they obviously had that famous two tight end set with Gronk and Aaron Hernandez back in the day, and you kind of envision that for the Bills going forward this year with Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Maybe you could just tell people what challenges you think that it causes a defense when you have a two tight end set.
Yeah, I mean, again, it depends on your system because you can present any number of different looks to a defense because sometimes defense is going to be in like a dime, a nickel, or a heavy or whatever personnel set. But if you have tight ends that can move around, maybe they're shifting and motioning, or just their skill set allows them to play different roles, it's pretty hard for a defense to be ahead of the game. It's like they're always playing catch up, right? They may have something called, but once they see what the offense is doing, it's an adjustment on the fly type of thing. But then just as far as like the one-on-one matchups, that's kind of that's what I love watching right now is you can see in how teams are utilizing these types of guys to create a mismatch. It's the game within the game, right? So, hey, we got this, you zoom out, you got this high level, here's the play call, here's the defense that we're seeing. But if you can isolate guys and play that one-on-one game with them, with the talent like that the Bills are going to have, it's going to be it's just fun to watch. It's hard to stop.
Yeah. So going back in high school or college, when you knew you were going to be a tight end, you were watching the NFL. Was there a tight end in particular you really watched and thought, yeah, that's who I want to model my game after?
No, not really. I didn't. Maybe I should have, you
had a nice career.
Yeah, it might have given me more vision and direction. I was always kind of still now, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but kind of just a compete against yourself kind of a guy. So it's like, do your best. It doesn't really, don't try to be someone else, just do your best. And that was kind of my mindset with all of it.
When you're watching a game as an ex-player, do you find yourself watching it more as a fan or as a guy? Are you basically breaking down film during the game? And then maybe what could you give somebody who's listening, a tip or a cue, maybe as to something to look for from the tight end position if they're watching the game and they don't focus on the ball?
Yeah, so I don't watch it as a fan, unfortunately, so it's probably not nearly as fun to watch now. It's more like that coach mindset kind of pops up, and the way I watch it is literally like I'm watching film. I get up there and I'll identify the formation that we're in. I'm like, okay, cool, there's the tight ends because it's fun to watch those guys. I was always into the O-line tight end, so I'll kind of see what those guys are doing. And again, it's like try to identify. This is me at home on the couch watching TV, which is dumb, but it's like, what front are they in? Okay, cool. Yep, those are the guys. Like I'm identifying the mic, or I'm identifying safeties, and then same thing that Coach Coyne thing he would always say is like, it's a complicated game, but there's ways you can kind of dumb it down. And it's all right. Identify your front, and then is it one high or two high safeties, and is it man and zone? And at the very basic level, that's kind of all you need. Like if you can identify those few things from the start, you're going to be a leg up in that ball snap. So I still do that now. I watch like, oh yeah, cool. It's one high. Oh, here they go. They're going to rotate to, 1, 2, whatever, man zone. Okay. And it's just kind of fun to watch. And then your eyes will gravitate towards maybe the type of position. But
if I read this correctly, I meant to ask you about this. I saw online. Are you part of the coaching staff at Boise State now? Are you in some kind of role there?
Yeah, no, I did for a bit. So, my story is kind of annoying and long, I guess, but I did.
No, that's good.
Eventually, after playing, just missed being home, and went back to school and got my master's from there. So I was doing the GA gig for him. So I was coaching, breaking down film, doing all that, and did that for 2 years. And it didn't take long. Like I'm sure you guys are aware, the coaching lifestyle it's aggressive, and I got 3 kids. And it was just not compatible with my vision of being a father, and so I had to get out of it.
Now, props to you for that. I spent my time there, and I always thought that those guys were married to the NFL. Yeah. And they were married to that coaching lifestyle. I'm sure it's probably similar in college, but you basically had to make a choice between a family and football. Yeah. And some of those guys chose football, and they seemed happy enough and good for them. But the guys who couldn't do it, I don't know if I could have done it for 25 years. I think the grind of it is just unbelievable, and the hours and the pressure and the expectations. And I like your word aggressive. I can think of a lot of stories of personalities that are aggressive and situations that were aggressive and not always great. Before we let you go here, Derek, we do something called the 2-minute warning, where we ask guys 10 kind of fun rapid fire questions in under 2 minutes. Just to let people have a little bit more of a taste of your personality. So, Don, go ahead.
Okay, Derek, where is your most interesting place to watch a Bills or a Boise State game?
Oh, man, I'm a homebody, so right at home on my couch. Can't lose.
Awesome. 3 people, dead or alive, you'd want to have dinner with?
Oh, gosh. I'd love to go back in time and have some dinner with my grandmother. Didn't get a lot of time with her and just love her to death. Big fan of the myth legend Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? And then we brought him up earlier. I got to reconnect with my man Marshawn. I just miss him. He'd be a ton of fun, and yeah, I just love him.
Good stuff. Okay, you're entering an arena. You're a big deal. What is your dry ice entrance song?
Man, I'm a 90s country kind of guy, so just pick one. It wouldn't even matter.
Okay. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Oh, I went to a Morgan Wallen concert this last year and time of my life. It was so much fun.
There you go. Nice. Okay, thinking back to your Buffalo days, what is your favorite Buffalo restaurant and what dish you got there?
Oh, gosh. I don't remember the name of it. Manja's, maybe? It was like this little Italian place. Is that right?
Yep.
And I don't remember much about the food. I remember it was good, but I did always like the little appetizers with the bread and the balsamic. They just killed it, man. They did it.
Good call.
Where was your favorite place to play on the road, and who was the most annoying fans in the NFL?
Oh, gosh. Most annoying, I would say that nothing's ringing a bell there, but I did have a good time playing in New Orleans. It was like a giant party. It's hard to explain. They just blasting the sound, the whole look around, everyone's dancing and being crazy. So good times.
Was that a year that we played there on Halloween? Maybe.
Maybe.
Do you recall? I couldn't tell walking down Bourbon Street whether or not this is like because of Halloween or this is how they always are. It's just, yeah. It was different. So your favorite cartoon growing up as a kid?
I was an X-Men kind of a guy. I don't know. That was always
Popular food, but you hate it.
Popular food?
Yeah, it's a popular food, but you don't like it.
Oh, shoot. I eat everything. I eat it all.
All right. This one, maybe of this question that we've asked, is more of a slam dunk than any. Can you drive a stick shift?
Oh, easy. Grew up.
Yeah, we can usually tell early on in an interview whether a guy is going to say yes or no to that one. The final one here, and now this one is I think he's going to be a yes. It's more of a question of willingness rather than memory. Mm-hmm. Can you sing us 5 seconds of the Boise State fight song?
No, I can't. No.
There you go.
Didn't have to think about it. That's all right. You put a lot of yourself into that program. We'll be following it. And Derek, this has been great. We really appreciate you breaking down the position for us and your football journey. Great to reconnect with you, and we can't wait for fans to hear what you had to say.
Yeah. Hey, truly an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. And as always, go Bills, right?
Go Bills.
Right. Go Bills.
Thanks, Derek.
You bet. Have a good one.